From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Larry R. Surratt, president of the Daniel A.P. Murray African American Cultural Association of the Library of Congress. I want to take this opportunity to welcome each of you here today for our program, and we want to have a special welcome to our special guest, Donnie Simpson, for coming and sharing with us today. Again, we welcome each of you and enjoy our program. At this time, Teresa Mims Davis will come and give us the introduction of our guest speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Donnie Simpson began his career at the age of 15 at the urban contemporary radio station WJLB in Detroit, Michigan, where he remained for 8 years. In 1977, he relocated to Washington, D.C. In 1983, Simpson was recruited by Bob Johnson, founder of BET, to host the network's primetime music video show, Video Soul. Simpson remained with the show until its cancellation in 1997. He hosted the Donnie Simpson Morning Show in Washington, D.C. on radio station WPGC-FM from March 1993 to January 2010. Currently, he hosts the Donnie Simpson Show in D.C. on Magic 102.3. Simpson is the first urban formal radio personality to have an annual salary of over $1 million without being syndicated. He was Billboard's 1998 Air Personality of the Year. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Donnie Simpson.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Oh my goodness. That $1 million number has been out there for so long. It's so funny to me. I just laugh every time I hear it because it's just, I don't know. I mean, what an honor. You know, it is an honor, but that's not why we do it. But it's nice that they pay you for it. As a matter of fact, I was just telling the guys during Thursday and Friday show, I even said it on the air, it's just still amazing to me that they pay me for this, you know, because I have so much fun. You know, I just love what I do. You know, we sit there, man, especially Thursday and Friday. We got the TV on. We're watching the Masters. We got Teddy Pendergrass and Luther playing, you know, telling jokes and having fun. It's like, wow. And you get a check at the end of the day, you know. And I've been blessed to get away with that for all my life, you know. Since I was 15, I've worked 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, no weekends, all the fun I can stand. You know, it's like God is so good to me. He is, I'm telling you. Oh, so, well, she kind of told you how it started. So, you know, I guess I should give you some background. I started, Detroit boy, born and raised in Detroit, home of Motown. And growing up in Motown was such a special occasion for me. It was just, wow. You know, we used to watch every Cadillac that went by, just hoping that you'd see Diana Ross or Marvin Gaye or one of the Temptations or one of their cousins. That'd have been just as cool. You know, that's exciting to the barber, anybody that knows them, you know. And so, wow, I'm going to skip way ahead here because I want to say this, that it's just amazing to me that all these years later, that these people are friends of mine, you know, that I just don't quite understand how that all happened. You know, it's just, well, there's a video that so many people have mentioned that it's on YouTube. It's with me and Aretha Franklin on Video Soul. And I don't remember how the conversation started, but somehow I went to Curtis Mayfield. And we were doing a 2-hour special at Aretha's house. And so I'm sitting there with her at her piano. And she starts singing, somehow I mentioned that my favorite song was The Makings of You. And she was, add a little sugar, honeysuckle. And I just started crying. I just started crying because there was so much in that moment for me. You know, it was like, how did I get here? How did this happen? You're sitting on the Queen's throne. One-on-one, greatest voice I've ever heard in my life, singing to me, one-on-one in my ear. How did this happen? I'm not worthy, you know. Surely they're going to put me out of here in a minute, you know. But it's just, but you know what? I guess God puts you exactly where he wants you to be. And so, you know, I'm grateful for it. I still don't quite understand how it has all happened. You know, for this little boy from Detroit who admired these people so, to grow up to become, you know, their friends and, you know, it's just, I don't know. It's overwhelming to me. It really is. To be here today, to see this kind of welcome is, it's overwhelming. When I came back to radio, after 5.5 years retirement, I mean, all of the press and the attention and stuff, it was just, I don't know, I guess I never get used to it. It's just, you know, when I retired, you know, and to see it on the front page of the Washington Post, you know, above the fold. I'll never forget, I got, seriously, you know, I picked up the paper that morning and I saw that and immediately tears just came to my eyes and I just said, so it was like that? You know, I mean, because you know, when you do what you do, you do what you do. You know, it's just, I'm rambling, but that's what I do. I'm sorry. But there's a line from Elton John's song, Rocket Man, that I love so much, where he says, and all the science I don't understand. It's just my job 5 days a week. You know, people look at it, you know, he's a rocket man. You know, he's an astronaut. It's just what he does. You know, it's just what I do. And you know, I'm blessed that I have gotten to do it. You know, I took off 5.5 years where I ran a shuttle service, shuttling grandbabies back and forth to school. And I was good at it, too. In the summer, I was a pool boy. I was good at that. I'm still for hire. You know, we do the G-rated version, then I do the adult version in Speedos. But you know, it was when they worked out the deal for me to come back. My best friend, I can't call him my agent or attorney because he's neither. He's just my boy. But he's done all my contracts. And he says, well, you know what? The only reason for you not to do this now is because you just don't want to do it. I mean, is there a reason you can think of to not do this? I said, yeah, well, I can't pick Nora up from school at 3. He said, well, you can shout her out on the radio. She'd probably like that better. So, I take them to school in the morning and I get to play music for them in the afternoon, which is pretty cool. I was asked to talk about some people here in D.C. that have impacted my life. And so I guess the one I'll have to lead with, it's not a local. He was transported here just like me, but that's President Obama, you know, whom I admire greatly. I have, until 2008, the answer to the question, what was the most important day of your life? Well, it was 2. It was the days of the birth of both my children. Until that man was elected president. Then, yeah, for real. That became the greatest day of my life. You know, it really was, because that was so much more than about me and my family and it was about us. You know, as a people and as a country, just not black people, but this country moving forward. You know, it was just that important to me. And I got a chance to meet him on the golf course last year He came over to say hello to me. I was like, wow, okay, cool. And I gotta tell you, it was so funny because we talked for maybe a couple minutes, and then we was leaving. You know, our brothers, we pretty physical, you know. So I was like, all right, man, cool. You know, I hit him in the chest like that, you know. And then I'm walking off, and I go, wow, did you just hit the president? But you know, but then immediately it was like, you know, yeah, but he was cool with that, you know, because he understood, you know, that you mean something to him. I mean, he means something to you, right? Don't get it twisted. Yeah, but so, you know, he understood that you know, he understands his place in our history. There was no doubt in that moment for me, and but what an honor. Wow, another one would be Chuck Brown. You know, yeah, Chuck. I love that man. You know, I share a wall with him and President Obama and Bill Cosby down at Ben's Chili Bowl, and which is pretty cool to me. But Chuck was just such a cool brother. Listened to my show every morning, 4 hours every morning. Every morning, was just the coolest guy. I still have not been able to bring myself to watch his Unsung. It's taped, but I haven't. They asked me to be a part of it, and I just wouldn't do it. I don't know. It's kind of emotional for me, and but I will watch it. But Chuck was just such a cool brother, and so about DC, you know. And I guess that takes me to the third person, which is Mayor Marion Barry. Who was totally about D.C., you know? Yeah, and people around the country sometimes don't understand it. They go, you know, how do you support that guy? You know, it's like, man, please. It's a D.C. thing. You just, you know, he was about the people of D.C. long before he took over the mayor's position. You know, he was always about D.C., and I admired him greatly for that. You know, I remember... You know, I mean, we all know what happened with the crack smoking thing. And I remember calling my dad in Detroit that night because I was so upset. You know, I just get tired of seeing us get torn down, you know. And so that night I called my dad and I was crying. I was just, you know, telling him what happened. They had this thing on videotape, Dad. He's blah, 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 blah. Went on and on. Finally, my dad said, And that was it. So I'm in the process of writing a book now, and that's part of what I want to write about. And it's just called that part. Because when you live that long and seen that much, you know, it's like, it was great. Blah, blah, blah. I've seen some stuff in my days. You know, so we should all live to, you know, I wish you all, But, you know, I admire those guys so, and, you know, so many times I've heard people say to me, actually somebody asked me in an interview just recently, they said, you know, it's like the three people that represent D.C., you, Chuck Brown, and Mayor Barry. And they said, so what does that mean to you? I said, that means I'm next. What does it mean to you? I'm next. I mean, I hope it's a long time, but that's a fact. That's a fact. I'm next. Oh, man. But, you know, see, I just ramble, but, you know, I have to say this, that death I do not fear. It's always been fascinating to me that the thing that we are all guaranteed we fear the most. And, but, you know, I used to be, but I remember, I was very young, I think at 22, 23, when President Anwar Sadat was assassinated in Egypt. And I remember seeing an interview with him, and it was 2 days before he was assassinated. And, you know, he knew it. I mean, pretty much like Dr. King, the night, the mountaintop speech, where he just, you saw it in his eyes. You just knew. And so they asked him about it because these reports were, it seemed imminent. And they asked him, was he afraid? And he said, absolutely not. There's no man who can take me before my time. And that was so deep to me. Like, you can pull the trigger, but God sent you. He's bringing me home. That's, and I don't mean to start preaching, but that's how I feel about that. You can pull the trigger, but so with that, I say, I love this journey so much that I'm on here. I love life, and with that said, I stand here ready to go right this minute because I don't fear that. I don't fear that. I look forward to sitting with Dr. King one day and seeing my dad again, all that stuff. So. Wow, I just went a long ways from starting out at 15. I don't even know how I got here. But but I've had a blessed career, to start in radio at the age of 15, especially in a major market. Detroit was the 5th largest market in the country at the time, and that's where I got my start. I mean, now it's 48. People left there like crazy. The automobile industry has just suffered so much through the years. But I always felt so blessed that I got to start so young. Most of the guys that I was competing with for jobs in radio, most of them had done their stint in the NOM, and they're 22, 23 years old. At 22, 23, I had 8 years experience, in a major market in Detroit. I mean, I was a tough candidate, when they called me to come here. It was to Disco 93. And I thought, no way. I'm not doing that. A disco station? Because to me, disco meant just stringing songs together, no involvement from the DJ, whatever. But my oldest brother had always taught me to always listen. You have to listen at least. So I decided to come here and talk with them. You'll love this. They fly me in, they pick me up at the airport, and take me for the interview at Arlington Cemetery. Right. I was like, man, this is Washington, boy. This is so clandestine. You know what? Why here? It was so weird. But I listened to the radio station and found out it was a little more than disco, and decided to come. The station I was at, I felt like I had accomplished everything that I could there. That there were, it was the biggest station in that chain, and this was owned by NBC. So I felt that there were a lot more opportunities there. I was making $13,000 a year in Detroit. I came here making $28,500. I thought I was rich. Woo! Making twice the money, but they didn't tell me the cost of living was 3 times as much. Yeah, oh man, surprise, I was broke. Oh my goodness, I struggled, man. I'm telling you, I struggled so hard the first couple of years. Because, I also lost my side hustle. People didn't know who I was. So, you're not emceeing shows and, ain't no side money coming in. So it was tight, man. I remember I had taken these pictures. I had these pictures developed. Everybody here remembers pictures developed, right? Yeah, you talk to some crowd, they wouldn't have any idea what you're talking about now. But they were the last pictures of my grandfather, and I couldn't afford to get them out of the shop. It was $28, and I'll never forget that. And this went on for about 3 months. They kept calling me, and finally I got enough money together to go up there and get the pictures, and they had destroyed them. It was gone. It was gone. But it's stuff like that helps to keep you grounded. It's it's like an old saying. I said I heard that the best way to teach your kids about money is to not have any. they learn the value of it real fast then. And I think we've all had those experiences and those struggles, and it's God turned things around very quickly for me after that, and I've been very blessed through the years to live a life that that is just unimaginable to me. It's just, I mean, so many years I started living beyond what my dreams were. That I don't know. It's just God's will, and I thank Him for the life that He's given me, and I should say, not just financially. That's secondary to the wife He's given me, to the kids He's given me, to the grandkids that He's blessed me with. He's just put such wonderful people in my life that I was thinking about this because last night, yesterday, Bob Johnson invited me to a fundraiser that he had for Hillary Clinton. So I go there, and here I'm sitting at the table next to Hillary Clinton. It's like, wow, this is cool. I never met her. I met her husband a few times. But so then we went out to celebrate Bob's 70th birthday last night. And so I was thinking about this morning. Bob's historic figure. He's our first black billionaire. But then I was thinking about those things I just listed to you, my wife and my kids. And I said, you know what? I can't say I'm richer than him, but I can tell you this, I'm just as rich as him. That this is worth, you can't put a value on what I have. $1 billion, give me a choice of those two things, I'm going to take this every time. Because in the end, we leave here with the exact same amount of money. That don't mean nothing. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. So, I'm just so blessed to have the love of my family, the love of my people. I just, y'all fill me up today, just having me here to be a part of this. Again, the reception I got coming in is just, it's overwhelming. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
That was too perfect.
That was perfect, man. They gonna think I set you up, bro. We're already up there dapping each other up and stuff. So yeah, he came with Donnie, man. That was a setup. Yeah. Yeah, but I was told to leave some time for questions and answers, so I'll do that. But thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. No. So, anybody got a question? Okay, go ahead, brother.
This is more than a question. This is to say thank you to this man. A lot of you know me as E-Baby, a poet. May 8th in 2004, there was a young lady, 7 years old, Chelsea Camaraderie, was killed by a stray bullet. Donnie was at the funeral, the mayor was at the funeral, a lot of people at the funeral, and the father asked me to perform a poem called Dada's Angel there. Donnie got in touch with people through the radio for me to come up to the station so he can play it that next morning so all of his fans can hear me. That boosted my career a lot. Wow. And I'm only here, and I made sure I was the first one here, and I sat there. It's not a setup. I know we on film. It wasn't a setup. But I'm honestly here to thank him. And as he named Chuck Brown and Marion Barry, I thank you. I thank you. And I say this, listening to you so long, I want to say, bruh, I want to say thank you, bruh, and I hope you accept that.
Man, I do, brother. Thank you, brother.
I appreciate that.
Wow. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, how many years ago you did Video Soul?
Yeah.
And I forgot the name of that group, but it was this guy, he always called you his brother.
JT, cool in the game.
Oh,
Yeah, JT, the lead singer.
I guess I just forgot the name of what's his name and everything, but I just remember y'all look so much alike.
We do, man. We had a picture taken that was so classic where even our mothers looked at him and just go, wow. My twin brother. And I have a real twin brother. We don't look anywhere near close like me and JT. Hey, it's not 3 o'clock. I'm not working yet. Yeah, that was my man, though. Cool brother, JT. Yes, ma'am.
One question and one comment. The question is, how have you seen the music business change over the years, the opportunities for DJs, and also how radio has gone from the regular radio, had in the stereo and all of that to computer and streaming and all of that.
Yeah.
So I'd like for you to respond to that. And also, my favorite memory of you is Tina Marie singing to you by the piano.
Wow.
That was her.
Yeah.
And that was very nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Wow. You know, I'd actually forgotten about that. And then the morning after Tina died, somebody posted on Facebook. And I saw it, I went, wow, I forget about, you know, I don't know, I never think to go to video that, wow, you got video with all of these people. But yeah, that was really special. Tina was really, really cool, something special. But, you know, for me, well, you ask about the music industry and radio, you know, it's funny, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and I have had this conversation about how our industries parallel each other and how we're struggling with what they have become. You know, that so much of the creativity has been taken out of it, you know, music, especially when you talk about R&B music. You know, it's a pretty sad state to me. And it bothers me that, you know, we just, you know, it used to be the top 30 songs in the country on the Billboard Hot charts. You'd see the OJs and Teddy Pendergrass and, of course, Michael Jackson, but, you know, you had real soul music that charted all the time, and it just doesn't happen anymore, you know? I mean, if you want to call Rihanna soul, you know, it's just, you know, not for me. It's not R&B. It's not R&B. And so, you know, so I hate that. But, you know, with radio, it's been stripped of its personality, you know, broadcast radio. And what happened was that there was a new rating service called PPM. Well, it was a new ratings system. For years, it was done by diary, where they would send you a diary. You would keep it for 2 weeks. You're supposed to write down what radio station you listen to, how long you listen. That didn't happen. What happens is you go, God, I forgot to send this thing in. All right, well, last Thursday I listened to WKYS for 14 hours. So it was imperfect. So they tried to come up with something that could correct that. They came up with these little boxes that you wear. It looked like a pager, and it picks up whatever it's hearing. Now, problem with it is that that may not be your choice of radio. If we're sitting in the Cheesecake Factory chilling, whatever they're playing, this is getting all the credit, even though I don't want to hear this. You know, we go to Old Navy shopping, same thing. You know, so that's imperfect also. But what happened was that for black stations in particular across this country, I mean, the impact was immediate. Stations that were perennial number ones for 25, 30 years went from number one to 15th, 16th place immediately. It was unbelievable. Never seen anything like it. And then radio stations that we had, the first book, we had a radio station here came up number one. Who was it? Oh, WFRE. We're radio people sitting in this going, who the hell are they? Never heard of them. It's a country and western station from Frederick, Maryland. It was number one in D.C. Like, come on, man. Come on, man. I'm telling you, it was that deep. I remember having this conversation with Stevie Wonder one night. I'm not dropping names, but but really, we were hanging out, we were talking about it, and I asked him how was his station. He owns a station, has since the mid '70s in California, in Los Angeles. And I said, how is I can't even think of the call letters. Kindness, joy, love, and KJLH. Kindness, joy, love, and happiness. I said, how are you doing with KJLH? He says, man, we're getting killed. He said, this PPM thing is crazy, and anybody who believes this is crazy. It's ridiculous. I said, I know, man. He said, you know, this is like trying to take radio from black people, you know, and there were inquiries into that because it seemed so calculated. But so anyway, in response to that, radio stations got to the point where they started trying to just program music because they wanted to get those hits when you're in the Old Navy and the Cheesecake Factory, and they figured they got a better chance of doing that with music playing than with someone talking. Okay, that's one of the problems. The other problem, and this is probably bigger than that actually, is that all of the advertising dollars went to the internet. Okay, so that impacted us in terms of salaries and stuff. Jim Vance, to drop another name, well, these my boys. These my boys. Yeah. So yeah, me and Vance were talking about it one night, and just about how, like, in radio and television, because of this, because those advertising dollars had gone to the internet, that salaries were coming down. And the kind of numbers that I posted as a personality for local radio, you'll never see again. It'll never happen. Because the money's not there. It's just not there. It's gone to the internet. They found an alternative way to advertise. And Jim Vance and I were talking about the fact that we were lucky that in our business, we were in radio and TV, we were just experiencing pay cuts. Print was closing their doors because of this same issue. So when you have less revenue to pay, you want to cut down the personality. If you can prove that it's just music, if I just play these 3 songs in this order every day, then you don't need to pay Donnie Simpson. Yeah. But what they're finding out is that, well, maybe we do. Because the only thing, this is not rocket science. From day one, I learned that the only thing that makes you listen to me, other than the guy next to me, is the way it's presented. We all get the same records. You can hear the same music anywhere. And to me, for radio to try to make it so music intensive, to take the personality out of it at a time when you can least afford to be music intensive. Man, I got all the music I can stand right here. In my iPhone, my iPad, Pandora, Spotify. Good luck out playing music to me. I need somebody to present it to me, to do something different with it. So that's the state of radio. Sorry. Yes.
I wanted, since you started off in Detroit is in such bad shape.
Yeah.
Have you done any humanitarian things to help the city get back on its feet?
I just try to stay away. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No. Well, you know what? I mean, I am home a couple times a year. Part of this is not Detroit, but it's kind of Detroit. But I'm involved in a project to bring some clean water to Flint. I mean, that's, even the people of Detroit, as bad as things are in Detroit right now, that's been Detroit's focus, is Flint. Trying to help save Flint. But, I've been asked to come back home and make appearances in Detroit, which I do. I've always supported Detroit. People here always say, how long you been here? I go, 40 years now. Well, you're a D.C. boy. I could be here 140 years. I'm from Detroit. That's, and when I'm done, send me back. Right. But, so, yeah, I've always been a part of Detroit and a part of things to try to help it. It's a bad situation there. Make no mistake about it. But, the former mayor was a very good friend of mine, Dave Bing. Dave, a lot of people know him from basketball. He played in the NBA. He's from D.C., D.C. boy. So Dave would have me back to be a part of things to try to help Detroit, as much as we can. Yeah, but it's bad. The population has gone from 2.6 million to 800,000 in 30 years in Detroit. There are blocks. You go there where it's, where there used to be 40 homes, now there's 2. It's like a bomb drop there. It's really, really sad. But you know what? I'll say this too, though, that those 2 homes that you do see, look at the lawn. Proud. It's a proud city. And yeah, so, it's tough, but people haven't given up hope, So. Oh, is that it? Oh. Wow, hey, thank y'all again. God bless you. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.